Chapter 3. Compliments. Mr. McArdle was ushered in by Hannibal. To Cleopatra Clayton, he was introduced by her friend Harry Prince. "I'm glad to know you, Mr. McArdle," said the radiant beauty as she offered her hand. "I am highly honored, Miss Clayton, at hearing you say so," returned Mr. McArdle with a happy smile. One step back took the beauty after shaking his hand, and then from head to foot, and from foot to head, she glanced her dark eyes, her gaze resting steadily for a moment or two on his quite handsome face. And this was the mental photograph she took. Well built, in good condition, black hair, short black beard with mustache, full face of pallor, black eyes bright and laughing, teeth white as the whitest, well-shaped and evenly set, and a smile that is summer itself. She was evidently pleased with this picture, for she said immediately, in her own peculiar way, "Well, I like you, Mr. McArdle. Don't blush at hearing me say so, sir. I always tell people so when I like them, but do not always tell them when I do not like them, unless they are so stupid as to require words to that effect. They drop on it, generally, and therefore I shall mister you no more, and neither will you miss me, if you please. My name is Cleopatra, and I am called Cleo for short. Call me Cleo, and not Miss Clayton. My friend Hal here calls you Mac, and what's good enough for him is good enough for me. I shall call you Mac, unless you seriously object." "Oh, not at all, miss. Forgot the lesson so quick, mister?" "Well, I declare," exclaimed the beauty, breaking in upon herself. "The teacher taking you to task and failing herself in the lesson." She burst into a laugh, the gentleman as well, all three laughing heartily. "Now what was you going to say, Mac? I shan't mister you again, you may be certain." "Oh, merely that I do not object at all to being called Mac by anybody. Everybody, in fact, calls me Mac. Much less would I object to your addressing me by that abbreviation." "Thank you, my boy, but really I don't know as it would make any difference if you did object." "Think it would, Hal?" "Well, to tell the truth, I don't think it would, Cleo," returned Hal dryly, adding, "You are not particularly noted for consulting the pleasures of other people in little matters like that, when you have made up your mind how to act." "Thank you, too, Hal. I owe you one. I'll pay, depend." "Have no fear on that score, your majesty," returned her friend, bowing gravely. "Your confidence in me shall not be abused, Hal. Not only the debt, but interest I'll pay." Her friend bowed as before, saying, "I am satisfied not only of your will, but your ability to pay both, Cleo, from experience." With mock majesty, the brilliant beauty bowed. "It is flattering to know in this one respect I am held to such high estimation by le grand prince." With all the grace and dignity that the proudest queen in Christendom might wish for, the magnificent Cleo turned from her old to her new acquaintance. But the queen was gone, and the gay, light-hearted woman spoke, after a ringing ripple of laughter had gushed from her lips. "Mac, be seated. Excuse me that I did not ask you before. Hal, you can stand or sit. You are a privileged character, you know." "You are very kind, and as it is all the same to you, I'll sit," said Hal, and the three seated themselves in a triangle, Cleo remarking to Mac, "We, Hal and I, were just going upstairs to practice a little at billiards, and we're speaking of you at the moment. You know, Uncle said he had invited you to call some evening." "I like billiards, Mac. That is, when I can find anyone who can play well enough to make the game interesting to me. My friend Hal here, well, I have to take him upstairs once in a while, for want of a better. I can't bear to go it alone, and even he is better than none. He does the best he can with the balls, and who does the best does as well as the angels can do. Don't you feel proud, Hal?" With an arch smile, she turned to the latter with this very interrogative. "Very, I assure you, Cleo, and please consider that debt paid in full, with interest accruing to date," said the gentleman, in a very businesslike sort of a way. "Oh, mercy, no, Hal. You are altogether too easy with your debtors. The interest remains unpaid. And now, Mac, thanks to your coming, I shall not have to punish myself for the sake of a little healthful exercise." "Principal and interest in full," said Hal, with a laugh, breaking in upon the beauty who paid no heed but went on. "And know you, Mac, I wagered a box of gloves with Hal that you would not beat me 2 games out of the 3. You see, I'm taking it for granted that you're going to play with me." "Why didn't you say you wagered a box of gloves that you would beat him 2 out of 3, Cleo?" asked Hal. "Because that was not the proposition. There's a distinction with a difference, my friend," said the young girl, smiling very sweetly. "I don't see it, Cleo. But, Mac, she calculates on your gallantry. Don't you let up on her a point. Don't weaken a hair. Play your game, just to show her that, although she gets away with me easily, some people can play billiards. She will stand defeat from you better than victory. With the latter perched upon her standard, you will never hear the last of her victorious plans. Besides, Mac, I want sweet revenge tonight for the many defeats I have suffered at her hands, and more than that, I am in need of the gloves. Every time I put on a pair of them, I shall reap a satisfaction only equaled by that which is mine when I put on a pair of boots. He has supplied me with boots, Mac, for a year, billiards being the bête noire compelling him to do so. Can't you impart to him a little of your skill by giving him a few lessons? I really don't wish him to become bankrupt on account of my boot bill, for he is not a bad fellow at heart. I fall at the feet of your majesty, overwhelmed by the solicitude expressed in regard to my financial welfare, and the more than deserved compliment with which queenly graciousness alone could bestow. But at the same time, said the speaker, looking from the regnant beauty to his friend McArdle, I want you to beat her, Mac. Rout her, horse, foot, and dragoons. And here, I lay you a wager of a suit of clothes that you don't beat her, and you must take the wager. She plays well, I assure you. But only your deference for the sex will allow the stronger to succumb to the weaker game. If you see fit to exercise the gallantry and magnanimous forbearance at expense of $100, rob me of sweet revenge beyond price, and keep me out of gloves which I much need. You are a wretch whom it were base flattery to call a monster. Let her go over before your stout lance, or never more call me a friend of thine. Well, really, I don't know about taking that bet, Hal, said Mac, laughing. If you are vanquished as easily as you would lead me to believe, I don't know but a Waterloo awaits me. Oh, take the bet by all means, Mac, said the beauty with a laugh. It will be an assurance to my friend here that you won't play off. And besides, you may win it, you know. It is my command that you take it, and obedience to my command should be the first law of your being. Even Prince Hal here obeys them without a murmur, notwithstanding his desire for revenge, not to be wondered at, perhaps, and his present hope to see me transfixed by your lance. Though he is laying to his soul the flattering unction that certain defeat is mine, and hopes it, I request him to make the game, which shows the great confidence I repose in him. Thanks, your majesty, 1,000 thanks, said her friend with a courtly bow. Discount her, Mac. I know I am making a good game for her, and that you will have no time to fool anyway, but I want the revenge that will come from a crushing defeat to her arms. Beat her at dead odds, and my revenge will be doubly sweet. Discount it is if you say it, Hal, said Mac, laughing. But from what I infer, I shall have to work to win. And you work, Mac, said Cleo, rising. And remember, I ask no odds of gallantry, magnanimous forbearance, and all that sort of thing. No odds at all. Now you two gents get up the stairs and I'll follow in a few moments. The gentleman left the drawing-room at this, and the young beauty, whirling to a front face before the mirror, laughed, ha ha ha, as she gazed for a moment at her reflected figure, and the face of wondrous beauty, and then said, If eye and tongue and form and face do not serve me in this passage at arms, then they will have lost their power, and I will have mistaken Mac.
Chapter 4. Empyrean. The entire floor of the palace, it was nothing short of that in its appointments, wherein the regnant Queen of Beauty, Cleopatra Clayton, lived, was devoted to the purposes of helpful exercise. Here was a gymnasium, complete in all its details, a shooting gallery, and a magnificent billiard table, the latter in the front of the apartment. The entire floor was covered with a brilliant carpet, and frescoed walls were hung with expensive engraving, each an artist's proof. From the frescoed ceiling hung 2 chandeliers. Over the billiard table the fixtures peculiar to these splendid pieces of furniture, while around the walls were a number of bracket fixtures. 10 feet, perhaps, in the rear of the billiard table, stood a fine piano, one of 3 in the house, and on the left of the former, looking front, was a large magnificent buffet of carved rosewood with gilt ornamentations, resplendent with a rich display of glass and silverware, the numerous pieces of carved patterns being arranged with exquisite taste. 2 large bouquets stood on the ends of the buffet's marble slab, and diffused a rich fragrance throughout the entire apartment. The buffets were flying on either side by a splendid cue rack, while 2 pillars that flanked the piano were ornamented with revolving racks. Half a dozen lounges were ranged against the walls in that portion of the room where stood the billiard table, the upholstering being of the best, with no two patterns of covering alike. The middle window front was entirely hidden from sight by a long, wide mirror in a massive frame, while the windows flanking it were adorned as nicely as any in the house, with lace and rich and heavy stuffs, shaped by an artist, and with artistic eye arranged. These gorgeous hangings and resplendent massive mirror were what put the finishing touch to the appointments of the place, and when the gas blazed at night, they lent to the room an air of elegance and splendor such as no gymnasium ever knew before. Into this apartment, all blazing with light, Mr. McArdle, the champion amateur billiard of New York, if not of the world, was ushered by his friend Harry Prince, the intimate of the young beauty who had the room fitted with the appliances from what she drew health and strength and enjoyment, and to the very evident pleasure of Mr. McArdle was he ushered into this unique, spacious, well-ordered and appointed, not to say elegant apartment. "Well, well," he exclaimed, after looking about for a moment. "This is complete, isn't it, Harry? Capital! Everything here I see, in the way of making muscle, to say nothing of billiards and music. What a lofty room, Harry!" "Yes, she had the roof raised 10 feet," said the latter in a careless way. "Who troubles the trapeze, Harry?" "Oh, anyone who wishes, Cleo quite often. You can exercise yourself if you like." "Oh, no. This floor is good enough for me. Excuse me if I decline to amuse you with any attempted feat on that instrument. I prefer to keep my feet on the floor. Ha! Boxing gloves, eh?" "Yes, and Cleo will give you a sample of her skills at sparring, if you like." "Oh, not any for me, my boy. I never had on a pair of boxing gloves in my life, and know no more about sparring than a pickerel knows about politics." "Then I wouldn't advise you to take your first lesson from her by any means. She laid Frank Foster out the other night, flat. He got up with his nose bleeding beautifully, if a copious flowing of the fluid may be thus characterized. Until he has acquired more skill, he won't box with her again. He never had on a pair of gloves before, and she inveigled him into it, laughing heartily when she knocked him over and at his bleeding nose. Served him right. Look out she don't inveigle you into putting on a pair. If she does, she'll bring the claret, Mac, if she does not lay you a la Foster and a dozen others for that matter. You would be astonished at the blow she strikes." "Never you fear about my putting on the gloves, Harry. I'm not to be inveigled, my boy." "Perhaps not, Mac, but let me say that those eyes of hers, that honeyed tongue, winning way, and invisible magnetism are beautiful persuaders, and have led many a man into a ridiculous position, and I own up to having been a victim myself before now and wouldn't dare to say I wouldn't be again. I have forewarned and forearmed you, otherwise it is dollars to cents that she would have seduced you into putting on the gloves, and nothing would have pleased her better than drawing the carrot from your nasal organ, except knocking you over, which, as you are pretty heavy, she might not have been able to do, however. She would stagger you, though, you may depend, heavy as you are. But that she won't, with the gloves, whatever she may do at billiards. You may depend, Harry. I shall take your advice, and not take my first lesson in boxing from her." "All right, Mac, and now let me say to you, don't let her magnetize you at billiards. If you do, you lose a suit of clothes to me, and I lose a sweet revenge." "But does she play as good a game as you have given me to believe, Harry?" "Indeed does she. And not only does she play the cue excellently well, but she plays her tongue and eyes, her ravishing smiles and silvery ravishing laughter, with a great, yes, greater effect. He who reckons on a soft thing with Cleopatra Clayton at billiards, or anything else that can be done in her Empyrean, as she calls this room, reckons without his host. At billiards, unless he is adamant, copper-lined and steel-clad, he'll go down before her battery of mitrailleuse, certain. So watch the balls and not her eyes and smiles. Listen to the mocking bird. There's one yonder in that cage, which will tune up soon as she comes in, and not to her silvery laughter and honeyed tongue, else you go forth vanquished at your own game, and by a woman. Upon my soul, Harry, you lead me to expect defeat, and really, I shouldn't regret it much at the hands of the magnificent creature. Magnificent she is, truly. You are gone, Mac, I see it, and so is my revenge, if you talk that way. Its sweetness I fear I shall never taste, unless you beat her tonight on the green cloth. I can't conquer for myself the revenge I crave. I am no match for her at anything except lifting and sparring, at which excel her. The first is to be expected, of course, for my much greater strength, and so is the second, partly from the same reason, and from a longer reach, and equal skill, you see, so there is no honor to be achieved at these. If I could beat her at billiards, I should be satisfied, but do my best, and you know I play no very poor game, I can't beat her. She beats me easily, and with the cue not bringing her other weapons into service against me, knowing perhaps I am proof against, or conscious of her ability to conquer without them. On the trapeze, to tell the truth, I don't essay it. 100 years' practice would not avail me against her, while on horizontal bars, and taking that inclined ladder and knotted rope hand over hand, in fact in everything but lifting, striking, and sparring, she lays over me as high as Chimborazo over Mount Tom. With the foils she can pink me whenever she chooses. I try in vain to get in on her. With the pistol and rifle I bow my diminished head before her, and I have been called a fair shot before now. She shoots then, eh? Shoots! I should say so. Hackett can't excel her. Ah, she has one of those ring the bell and open sesame targets, I see. How many times in a dozen shots can she open it, Hal? Precisely 12 times, no more, Mac. Sure as that, eh? Yes, and only that she would throw me, certain from deviltry. I'd lay $500 she could shoot 1 hour on 3, without missing the mark. She is simply perfection in this, as she is in most everything else, where skill contributes to perfection. You should see her ride. Take a fence, a wall, a ditch, a brook. You should see her play. Violin, piano, harp, flageolet, cornet a piston, and the Lord only knows what, anything from an organ to a Jew-sharp, and you would marvel at the music, yes, music, she can extract from the latter humble instrument. And you should hear her sing, the very essence of melody she sets free, see her dance and waltz, the very poetry of motion is hers. You should see, well, whatever you may see or hear her do, you more than wonder how she does it, but she does. Why, she is a nonpareil, isn't she? I'll tell you what she is, Mac, a Crichton in crinoline, an admirable Crichton, excelling him in variety of accomplishments, the field of these having largely extended since his day. In addition, she has the courage and soul of a Bayard, with the tenderness and sympathy of a sister of charity. She is equal to the rage of a maddened lioness, and the gentleness of a fawn. She can crush and she can shrink when she pleases. She can captivate or repel, please or provoke. She can make you supremely happy or make it extremely hot for you, serve you with honey or serve you with vitriol. She can soothe or she can irritate. She can scorn and she can pity. She is a queen, peerless in her power and beauty, a woman matchless in her mirth and waywardness. She steps boldly without the pale of conventionalism, and what in others would be reckless imprudence, with positive peril and fatal following. In her is simply audaciousness without danger, for she is strong beyond compare. Whatever her faults, her goodness of heart and charity cover them all, and the mantle is broad enough to cover a multitude more. As you say, she is a nonpareil. I should say so, indeed, Harry. I hope to see more of her. But let's get over yonder. I'll try a shot. Certainly. Try your hand, if you wish. The two gents moved over to the further side of the room and towards the rear, stopping at a table on which way 2 or 3 rifles and any number of pistols of various patterns. A natty little fellow of Nubian descent stepped up, saying politely, "Do you wish to shoot, Mr. Prince?" "My friend here will try a shot, Alaric," returned the gentleman addressed, and picked up a pistol as he spoke. "Here, Mac, here's her favourite pistol, gold-mounted and jewelled, you'll observe. It's all ready, and mind, now, you don't shoot your foot. It's a hair-trigger." Mac took the pistol and turned towards the target, which he had not before particularly noticed. "Bless me!" he exclaimed. "Miss Clayton!" "Her effigy in iron, painted up to life," said her friend. "The best thing I ever saw. Except the original, you mean, Mac," said Prince, laughing. "By George, it is capital, Harry, true to the very life." And so it was, reader, a facsimile of Cleopatra Clayton. A low-necked dress just revealed the swelling outlines of the upper portion of those ravishing charms of womanhood, which well-developed women glory in, the contrary, developed envy and sigh for, and which the sterner sex admire. At the edge of the dress, at a point exactly between the swelling semi-globes, was painted a red rosebud, the objective point at which all aimed who fired at the effigy, though not all succeeded in hitting it. "Here, Mac, stand right here," said Harry Prince, placing the toe of his boot on a particular spot on the carpet. "Stand right here and hit that rosebud if you can." Mac stepped to the spot indicated, and, reaching it, was somewhat surprised to see a shield of steel appear before the face of the effigy. That face was not to be the target for wandering bullets. "Now, Mac, fire!" exclaimed Prince, as his friend took his stand. Mac raised the pistol. Crack it went, but no result followed. The effigy remained in status quo. "Not so bad, Mac, not so bad!" These words were followed by a light, ringing laugh from the speaker. Mac turned and started. Cleopatra, metamorphosed, met his gaze, and what a change! A handsome fez crowned her superb head. A sack and loose knee-breeches of rich, maroon-colored velvet she wore, with snow-white stockings, and very high-heeled and highly polished French morocco slippers with golden buckles. The sack, adorned with buttons of gold, was buttoned at the top, falling off to the hips, owing to its cut, revealing a richly embroidered chemisette front, on which blazed 2 magnificent solitaires, flashing their fire in all directions. If Mac thought her beautiful below in the drawing-room, he thought her the personification of beauty now in this dress. If it were possible to enhance her beauty, then it was enhanced by the rich costume in which she now appeared. The dress was very becoming, and in it she looked taller, and as the change was radical, the eye might have fancied a heightened beauty. She might have looked more beautiful to some eyes than when wearing the customary costume of the sex, to other eyes not. Certain it is, however, that she looked no less beautiful in any dress. Peerlessly beautiful she was, but with what emotions would the sculptors and painters, the anchorites and sybarites have viewed those ravishingly beautiful limbs, from the knees to the ankles. What a study for the 2 first, what a wonder to the 3rd, what a feast for the last. Mac looked at her with surprised, admiring eyes, said nothing but, "Well, well!" and forgot his missed shot. She enjoyed his surprise for a moment, and, perhaps, was pleased at his admiring gaze, but she didn't forget the shot. Oh, no. "No, it wasn't so bad, Mac. I have seen fellows fire at that figure and hit the floor, or that window 4 feet to the left. You hit the figure. You wish to hit the rose and hit the toes. Try again. Practice makes perfect, you know. You may require months of it, but what of that? Persevere, Mac, my boy, and you will be rewarded. In time, perhaps. Here, Alaric, load that pistol." The natty Nubian servitor, whose duty was confined to the gymnasium, took the pistol from the hand of Mac, and proceeded quickly to load it, very shortly accomplishing the task, and tendering it back to the hand he took it from. "I'm done," said Mac, with a laugh. "I don't think I could hit the figure again, now. Let me see you shoot, please, Cleo." with not a little pause before the last utterance. There, you have broken the ice now, Mac, and don't be backward in coming forward with Cleo, as I am not with Mac. But won't you try another shot? No, I thank you, Cleo. I am done, returned Mac, and stepped from the spot where he had stood, the face of the effigy immediately appearing to view as he did so. The Nubian handed the pistol to his mistress, who, without moving, said as she took the weapon, "Look!" and fired instantly as she spoke. The tinkle of a bell was heard. Instantly her effigy, or what made it such, the front of form and face, vanished. In its place stood a grinning, ghastly skeleton, the articulated bones bleached to the whiteness of snow. "Great God! Horrible!" exclaimed Mac, starting back at least 6 feet from where he had stood, Harry Prince quietly laughing, and the beautiful Cleo laughing in a way that was anything but quiet. It was anything but a ripple of laughter, now, with her, swelling billows. What with the ghastly skeleton, which seemed to be grinning, if not staring with sightless sockets, particularly at him, and the ringing, impressible laughter of the pleased beauty, Mac, to say the least, was not a little confused. Cleo enjoyed his confusion as she enjoyed his startling fright from propriety at the sudden appearance of the grinning skeleton, and she laughed immoderately, for the simple reason that she couldn't help it. It was just such a joke as she revelled in, and Mac was not the first man who had roused her risibilities to a high pitch from the same cause. Harry Prince enjoyed the joke too, and though he laughed heartily, it was in the quiet way peculiar to him. He never was demonstrative by word, sound, or action. He did not gush. Mac, a habitually smiling, laughing man, tried to force a smile the moment after his exclamation, but the attempt resulted in failure. The smile made a desperate attempt to carry his lips by storm, but it was repulsed and beaten back. Still bubbling, indeed boiling over with laughter, Cleopatra said, "Why, Mac, the idea of your jumping back like you did, at the sight of Brother Bones, or Sister Bones, if you like. Born in the woods to be scared by an owl. I think this will apply, Mac, for ever since you were old enough to go alone, you have carried about, among your friends, into all sorts of company and places, a skeleton much larger even than that." Here was an interlude of laughter, too great to admit of her speaking. It subsiding somewhat, she further said, "You didn't hesitate to bring that bony thing here tonight, and yet you jumped 6 feet back, because one of the same sort came forward to greet you, with whom you didn't happen to be acquainted." Mac rallied somewhat at this, and quite a respectable smile played on his lips. Cleo continued, "You shouldn't allow yourself to be set back so by strangers, Mac. I detest diffidence in a man. I am troubled that way somewhat, but I am a woman, you know." This statement, from what his friend had vouchsafed in regard to the speaker, and what he had judged himself, appeared so absurd to Mac that he burst into hearty laughter, saying something about the skeleton's sudden appearance, to which Cleo paid little attention, continuing, "Know you, Mac, I had the skeleton set up and here, in order to remind myself of what awaits us all. As I am situated, I might forget that death had entered my name on the roll of mortality, and imagine that, or at least not think but what, life would last forever. I might not think of the old reaper, you know, until he suddenly and loudly knocked at my door, but as I shoot every day, once or oftener, I am reminded that one day I shall be a skeleton, though not so well kept as this, perhaps. But come, let us have a glass of wine, and then to billiards." "I'm with you there, Cleo, but, to tell the truth, I am not passionately fond of such society as that. Skeletons." "Alaric!" The natty Nubian nodded as his mistress spoke. She pointed at the skeleton, and he stepped quickly towards it, pressing his foot on a certain spot nearby. The skeleton vanished on the instant, and the effigy of Cleopatra came to the front again.
Chapter 4. Widow Clicquot. What do you think of Empyrean, Mac? Well, Cleo, as the ladies would say, it is perfectly splendid, replied Mac, now fully recovered to his usual laughing, happy state. If the pure element of fire does not obtain here, as the ancients believe it did in the original, said the brilliant beauty, we must not charge it as the fault of the gas company. Oh no, but rather the coal, I suppose. There is blaze enough here, certainly, that I wouldn't wish to vouch for its being the pure element of fire. Bacchus, she called, as the billiard table was reached, the call being answered by a dapper, dandified young, about 3 shades off color. Wine, Bacchus. As a matter of course, you drink wine, Mac. Champagne. I don't know who wouldn't, who could, hardly. I never shall join the good Templars, as long as champagne is in vogue. I like it immensely, and own up to it. What is your favorite brand, Mac? Halifax Heidsieck says it is the wine, but I prefer Widow Clicquot. Well, Cleo, I must acknowledge that Heidsieck suits me well as, if not better than, any other brand, returned Mac. Like you, I must say I am fond of champagne. Bacchus now presented himself with 3 glasses of wine on a silver salver of unique pattern, exquisitely chased, and bright as silver could be made. He indicated the Heidsieck, and Mac and Hal took 2 glasses of that brand, Cleopatra taking the remaining glass containing her favorite wine. The 3 touched glasses, Cleo saying, Hal, you are in order now. Anything from you will be listened to with respect, and a great deal of pleasure, doubtless, after I say to Mac, your very good health, sir. And having said it, I give the winner. May he win easily, and his triumph be complete. Or if you prefer, I give the loser, may her defeat be most signal, that my revenge be most sweet. Thank you, Hal. I knew you would afford me pleasure. What should I do without you, my sweet blossom? The beauty touched Hal's glass again, as she spoke, affecting one of those glacial smiles that chills the blood, and which she could summon to her lips in earnest, when the employment of such was desirable, and then touched that of Max, saying, Well, here's to us 3, irrespective of politics, religion, love, color, sex, or billiards. When shall we 3 meet again? With little ado and no further ceremony, the glasses were drained, and scarcely were they emptied before the beautiful hostess exclaimed, Bacchus, fill those glasses once more. I have talked myself, and must have talked these gentlemen thirsty. Then, Mac, we'll measure lances on the field of the cloth of green. No sooner said than done. The glasses were quickly filled and quickly drained. Cleo, with an arch glance at her intended victim, said, Bacchus, get the balls. Mac, select a cue. You'll find one to suit you, I guess, in one rack or another. The beauty went to the buffet as she spoke, took a cigarette, which in her deft fingers, skilled by long practice, was quickly ready for her lips. Lighting it, she stepped to the rack on the right of the buffet and took therefrom a magnificent cue, the butt composed of various woods, light and dark, and inlaid with gold, the same being a trophy of her prowess on the field of the cloth of green, of her victory over Harry Prince, the first time she ever played with him. Mac, help yourself to the cigars there, she said, and went to the head of the table, adding, after a short pause, that is, if you can smoke them with any pleasure at all. How is that one you have? A most excellent cigar, Cleo, replied Mac, taking the weed from his lips as he spoke, and looking at it with satisfaction. That speaks well for the house, but Hal would have preferred a different verdict. I judge so from the remark he made a short time ago. Your unqualified approval entails him to further service, which he would gladly avoid, but which he cannot, in fairness, free himself from, and leave me to look out for another to act in his place. Perhaps the verdict in the second case will be different, spoke Hal in a significant tone. At this moment, a flood of flute-like notes gushed forth from a feathered throat, and filled the spacious apartment with entrancing melody. Aha! Listen to the mockingbird, Mac, said the beautiful entertainer as the feathered songster poured forth its flood of melody. Exactly what I said to him, remarked Hal, throwing himself upon one of the lounges which stood on a dais sufficiently high to admit of anyone sitting or reclining thereon to see the play on the table. In reference to what, if I may ask, mon prince? Interrogated Cleo. Or who? She further questioned in a moment. In reference to billiards, and one who shall be nameless. I thought it better for him to listen to the mockingbird than to another singing and talking bird while the game is going on, returned Prince, puffing a cloud of smoke from his lips. Oh, that's it, eh? Well, perhaps he will heed the suggestion now that it comes from me, Hal. Listen to the mockingbird, Mac, by all means. Don't let the talking bird beguile you, will you now? Said the beauty, uttering the last words in an appealing tone. Mac laughed, chalked his cue, and made no reply. Which of the balls for you, Mac? She asked the next moment. Immaterial to me either, replied her opponent. I'll take black, then, she said, and placed the spot ball before her. The 2 balls were struck at the same instant and rolled moderately to the lower cushion, striking it at the same time, and for about 5 feet on the home stretch kept neck and neck, when hers began to lag, rendering it certain that her opponent had won the lead. Her ball lost motion 10 inches from the cushion, while his went in nearer by 4 inches. "A good omen," quietly remarked Harry Prince. "Call to mind the old saw, Hal, about a good beginning and so forth," said Cleo, placing her ball in the upper spot, the game being one of French caroms. 33 points up, Mac. Push shots barred, bridges tabooed, nursing allowed, 1 foot on the floor, scratches counted, misses no account, no comments by outsiders, no applause, no hisses, no whistling, Hal to be umpire when we require, you to discount me, be 2 out of 3, and no favors asked, and for what? Just to make it interesting, you know. Say boots. Bet the boots." The vivacious beauty rattled this off glibly and immediately queried, "What say? Agreeable?" "Perfectly," returned Mac. "If you win, Hal wins a box of gloves and sweet revenge, and loses a suit of clothes, not to be counted for a moment, however, against revenge, and I lose a pair of boots to you. If I win, Hal wins a suit of clothes, but loses the revenge he craves, to say nothing of the gloves, and I win gloves, boots, and a satisfaction that he alone can appreciate." "And now, Mac," said the beauty, fixing full upon him her large, dark, sparkling, liquid orbs, a ravishing smile playing on her ruby lips, which parted to reveal the pearly portals of her mouth, and placing the jeweled fingers of her left hand upon his shoulder. "And now you will play your game, won't you? Honor bright. Play as well as you can, won't you, Mac?" A soft, delicious, wheedling tone was that in which the brilliant beauty spoke. Just such a tone women well know how to affect when wishing to wheedle their lords or lovers into or out of this thing or that thing. And remember, reader, it was backed by a brilliant beauty, the most melodious of voices, and a witching way that was irresistible, which all women are not blessed with. "Dead for a ducat," muttered Harry Prince, as he saw and heard what we have described and told. He knew the beauty was playing the game, and winning, with weapons not made of wood, that the champagne disquisition and the singing succeeding it were all in the bill, and now felt that the fire would prove fatal to Mac, had opened in earnest, to slacken only when he was vanquished. He felt this, knowing the power of the brilliant beauty, felt that the cue, powerful as it was, when wielded by the skillful hands of Mac, was a weapon ill-matched against those Cleopatra would employ on her side. To the interrogative of the latter, Mac replied in the affirmative, declaring he would play the best he could, honor bright. And he declared, truthfully, no doubt, he would play the best he could, under the circumstances. But reader, put yourself in his place. Let the light, sparkling and bright, that beamed in the depths of those lustrous, liquid, slow black eyes, direct its rays upon your eyes. Gaze upon that matchless face, whose peerless beauty would have driven an anchorite mad with admiration. Upon a smile that would have ravished a marble heart. Let the fingers of that peerlessly beautiful woman rest upon your shoulder, her face of wondrous beauty turned to yours, and, thrilled through and through, entranced, captivated, enslaved, say that you would play your game. Say it, you might. Could you do it? Not at billiards. You might possibly at poker, though we think she would bluff you at that even. We are not going to describe that passage at arms on the field of the cloth of green. Owing to the tactics of Cleopatra, it lasted far into the night, or morning rather. Did the beauty bewitching win? Harry Prince would tell you no, that Mac lost. And thus it was. He did lose, but Cleopatra did not win at billiards. She was the victress, however, and he the vanquished. But the cue was not the weapon wielded by her to his defeat. He succumbed to her brilliant beauty and winning ways, to her sparkling eyes, her ravishing smiles, her honeyed tongue, her melodious voice, her charming gaze, and her irresistible magnetism. And yet he played as well as he could. And we know that men who excel him in the noble game are scarce, but then they play with the cue, which makes all the difference in the world. Mac didn't listen to the mockingbird, but he did to the talking bird, and that's what the matter was. Harry Prince, thwarted in his revenge, was nothing if not disgusted. Mac, vanquished, was nothing if not contented. He knew that his hand had not forgot its cunning, but that his eyes and ears had been entranced, and was in no way chagrined at the result. Cleopatra, the victress, was nothing if not gratified, What woman wouldn't have been? But her gratification arose not from the fact of her victory over Mac, by itself considered, but from the consciousness that Harry Prince was, as she herself expressed it, still the underdog in the fight. He was discomfited, and she was happy, mistress of the situation. "Well, Mac," she said, after the passage at arms had concluded and she had thrown herself upon one of the lounges. "Every cock, they say, fights best on his native heath, or words to that effect, and I suppose the rule will have to apply to every hen as well, and every pullet, eh? I don't know as I shall ever wrestle with you on your own vantage ground, but who can tell what time may bring to pass? Time works wonders, it is said." Stepping to the floor, she said, as Mac picked up his hat from the piano, "Don't be in a hurry, it's only 3 o'clock now, and there is no hour at which people are locked in here. This is Liberty Hall, you bet. Come when you please, stay as long as you please, and, well, go when you get ready, of course, else I suppose it wouldn't be Liberty Hall. Don't go now, though, before we have had another bottle." "No more? Oh, but you will, though. A parting drink, you know. You can't refuse, and I'll drink Heidsieck with you." Stepping to the buffet, she took a bottle of Piper Heidsieck passed her by Bacchus, with a knife to cut the strings. The whitest cambric handkerchief could have been rubbed over the bottle without soiling its whiteness in the least, so clean it was. "Pop goes the weasel!" exclaimed the gay beauty, as the cork flew ceilingward from the bottle. Filling the glasses, she called out to Prince to come to the front, which he did at once. Looking archly at him, as she raised her glass, and then at Mac, she said, "When shall we 3 meet again?" and then tossed off the amber liquid, sparkling with 1,000 gems. "One more, Mac." "What? Can't take any more? But you must, my dear fellow, one more." The laughing beauty again filled the glasses, and then again they were emptied. "Did you ever hear the bottle song, Mac?" queried she, holding up the empty bottle in her right hand. "I never did, Cleo, but would much like to hear it," returned Mac, with a look of animated expectancy. "Oh, but I'm not going to sing it tonight. This morning, rather, as I know Hal would be utterly provoked, and I wouldn't do anything to provoke him for the world, you know." "Come, Mac, let's go after that," said Prince with a laugh. "Yes, I must go, that's a fact," said Mac, holding out his hand to his beautiful entertainer, in which she placed hers, not the tips of her fingers, but her hand. Shaking it heartily, Mac said, "For the most enjoyable evening I've ever spent, Cleo, I owe you 10,000 thanks, and I shall never forget it, I assure you." "Thank me for nothing, Mac. If you enjoyed it, so did I. Honors are easy. As far as thanks are concerned, I should have had to beaten poor Hal, if you had not most opportunely called, and he feels it so that I declare it really pains me to play with him. But won't you have another glass of wine before you go?" "I shall have to decline most positively, Cleo. Not another drop." "Well, you know best, my boy, but come again soon. When at home, I shall always be at home to you." "Thank you, Cleo. And now I bid you good morning," said Mac, bowing gracefully. "Good morning, Mac. Good morning, Hal," said the beauty, adding, "but I'm going down with you to the door." Outside, and halfway down the steps of the mansion, Mac was arrested by the call of his name from Cleo. He turned, and the latter asked, "Is there any game you play better than billiards?" Before he could reply, the door was closed. The last shot had been fired.